Hi, everybody. My name is Miles, and I'm with Peak Performers. Thank you so much for joining me on this next installment of My Disability Story. In this segment, I seek to interview people within our community and their specific lived experience living and working with a disability. Because oftentimes, going out in the community and talking with people, they oftentimes express to me, Miles, I just feel like I'm so alone and that there's nobody else like me in the world. And that's just simply not true. There are other people like you. And I like to highlight some of the most prominent and some of the best people out there with disabilities living and working within our community. So, with having said that, I'm going to highlight Marlon. Marlon, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate this. So my name is Marlon Moore. I do a couple of things. But overall, I say that I'm a disability advocate because I myself have a disability. I was born with what's called spina bifida, which is a um, physical disability. It's a birth defect. So what it does is typically affects physical aspects of your body. I walk differently than other people, and some people might use wheelchairs or use crutches, things like that. Outside of that, it also has a learning disability aspect to it as well. For some individuals, not all. It's similar to um, autism in the sense of like a spectrum. The severity of it kind of varies. Because of my disability, the things that I do all were influenced because of my disability. With that, throughout school, I always wanted to be with the popular kids, wanted to kind of be included in different avenues and different groups, and just couldn't figure out how to do that in a way to relate my disability with what was trending and what was popular. And then I fell in love with clothing and sneakers and different um, just hot topics and fashion, trendy items and things like that. And it prompted me to create what is called the Conscious Kid brand, my clothing brand or TCK brand. And through that, I decided to use that as an avenue to connect those people with disabilities, the disability community, and really uplift them. I always give the example of like FUBU. So FUBU is a brand that came out in the 90s for us by us. It was created by Damon. I cannot remember his last name, but um, he's on Shark Tank. He created that brand to really highlight the black community and like all of the elements within the black community, from hip hop to just food to all things, and just put it on a positive light. And I wanted to use that same model to do that for people with disabilities because a lot of times it's always a struggle story or it's inspiration in the sense of like if he can do it, I can do it as an able bodied person, but it's like we're not here to only be your inspiration. So I just really want to create a brand for us and by us, similar to, like I said, with the FUBU mentality of keying in on representation, inclusion, and diversity when it comes to really highlighting the authentic image of what it's like to have a disability and all that encompasses with that. And so I've created designs solely. Majority of my designs are geared towards physical disabilities just because of my lived experience and things of that nature. And so one of my first designs that I ever came out with was a shirt that highlighted AFOs, ankle foot orthotics, um, or what most people that wear them call them, are just leg braces, which help individuals like me and others with like cerebral palsy walk. So it's a mobility aid. And so when you go to what we call the braces place, it's what I call it in my family. But when you go to get your AFOs at the doctor's office, you have the option of getting them customized into different colors, into different designs and things of that nature. And with my clothing brand, I correlated that same kind of mindset of that customization with sneakers and like how Jordans come in multiple different colors that are iconic. The red, black, and white is an iconic color. Just Chicago Bulls color and things like that. And like you can do that same thing with your leg braces. And so I correlated leg braces with sneakers, and I was like, okay, sneakers is popular. How can I do that same thing with leg braces and create that same hype and that same feel good mentality and pridefulness with disability so that more people like me can have more pride and more self confidence within themselves about their disability because I and kind of flipping that narrative of disability being something that you have to deal with and rather something that you can embrace because that's really what the whole idea of my clothing brand and the whole mission of it was to embrace what you have rather than looking at it as a burden or something that is negative. That trickled into my whole perspective on life, and then going into because I did my clothing brand throughout high school, and so once I got into college, I really wanted to be more in the community and be more involved with different things, and so one of the things that I really got into, thankfully, was I rounded up a group of people that had disabilities at Georgia State University, which is the college that I attended, graduated from. And what we did is we formed, or let me say, reestablished a chapter organization called DREAM, which stands for Disability Rights, Education, Activism, and Mentoring. And so through that, I learned advocacy, true advocacy, like for disability rights, and also just fighting for inclusion, and then breaking down barriers that might be campus barriers, physical barriers that hinder the access of someone who's a wheelchair user. And I think in those moments as well, they really helped me out with understanding different perspectives of disabilities because we had a wide range of disabilities from people who were blind, people who were, like I said, wheelchair users, people that were deaf. And so learning about from their perspective of what access is, um, and what true inclusion or their version of inclusion is kind of helps shape all of these like perspectives that I kind of have now. I bring that up because I think it was a great chapter in my life because it helped me, like I said, become more creative in like thinking of what inclusion looks like and what access looks like. And so I did that throughout my time at Georgia State University and was awarded what's called the George M. Sparks Award. And it was pretty much to acknowledge individuals who made an impact at Georgia State University through different advocacy roles and things of that nature. I work at Vanderbilt University now as the Accessibility Services Coordinator. And in this role, I'd work primarily with technology accommodations.
I think that it's really important that we're filming this right now through Disability Pride Month. And the way that you spoke is spoken with so much pride and talking about how oftentimes disability is perceived through the lens of shame or something that you hide about yourself. Or something that you try to minimize. But increasingly, a lot of people have chosen to be prideful about their disability. After all, their story is a good one to tell of overcoming great obstacles as well as the many people that fought hard to make the world a more inclusive place before them, too. But I want to go back to fashion real quick, and I want to talk a little bit more about fashion because it is something that's a passion for you, but it's also something that I don't think really gets enough attention. So, could you speak to me about why it's important to not just have functional objects within society, but also fashionable and and things that are pleasurable to look at?
Like my dream isn't to be a fashion designer. My dream wasn't to be, on the New York runway, was it Fashion Week? Like it wasn't that. It's I truly do love fashion. I love like to dress well. I love getting the latest sneakers, things of that nature. But it, in all honesty, it was strategic. When I sat down, and the overall goal was to promote disability pride in people with disabilities, youth specifically with disabilities, because I saw, even within my experience and then friends that I had that lack those social skills or those, excuse me, those confidence within themselves. I sat down and I was like, okay, what is trending right now, and what's gonna always kind of be popular, and what's always going to be um, easily digestible amongst any age group. I saw fashion as the most accessible and digestible avenue to promote disability pride and disability inclusion because because it's art. Art is creative. Art, you can put anything on a T-shirt, and wear it, and people can relate to it, and it makes them feel good, about themselves, but then just also about what they're representing and what they're actually wearing. Whether it's just as simple as the colors all match, your shoes match your shirt, and then you like the silhouette of the design on the shirt, and the words that it says. I know how it is as a kid trying to fit in, and you don't know how to, or you don't have that avenue. And so that's really what this clothing brand was, to create that avenue, to be able to relate, to be able to bridge that person without a disability with a disability, because both of us like sneakers. So now we don't have to talk about necessarily my disability. It can be in conversation, but we can become friends. And then through that, through the experiences, you learn about my disability.
I want to dig in particularly to kind of building bridges, and let's talk about generational differences and kind of where we're at right now. But particularly, you're the youngest guest that I've interviewed for my segment so far. And I think that you bring such a fresh perspective to that. But could you speak a little bit more to your generation and kind of the perception of disability, both visible and invisible? And also, I want you to comment on like where you'd like to see things change for the better in the future.
My generation's in a good spot. And I say that is because, look at all the things that I tell people this all the time: you either accept it or you tolerate it. And I think both of those things are positive, to an extent. And so I think that our generation really is good at accepting or tolerating things. And I think that that's progression. And what I mean by that is we can look at, um, things that have passed, like, for example, with like the LGBTQ, like, and like that whole wave, um, and movement, and like how it's over years it just became accepted. People are coming outside more, and we're not hiding in the shadows. People with disabilities are going to concerts. We're going to parks, parties, sports events, and so it's becoming more common to see these people and to see, disability, in everyday life, similar to, like I was saying, um, to like the LGBTQ community and things like that. Like, it's become a norm once the older generation, um, learns to lean more towards their creativity side rather than the rational and logical side. The switch will flip from what they can't do to how can we get them to, do these tasks, to accomplish these, things that we need to fit the qualifications. Like, what do we need to modify in order for them? Because there's a job for everyone. Like, everybody can do something.
You had told me a story about your own experience working for Tommy Hilfiger, I believe it was, and how because you felt welcomed and because you felt included within that workplace, you stuck around for a little longer. Is that right?
We'll give credit to my store manager. So, his name is Charles. My store manager, he, very welcoming and very accommodating. So there were certain situations with, where, like, my medical condition, I had medical emergencies, and it was during like, crunch time, or even like during holidays like Black Friday sales, where lines are out the door, and so I can't leave the register. That's where I mainly was. But there was this one time where I had to leave the register, and he completely understood, and I ended up having to, go, um, get myself together. But I was gone for, I almost want to say, 40 minutes. I wasn't penalized for that. I wasn't, you know, nothing was done other than, are you okay? Is everything good? Are you ready to get back on the register? And that's as simple as what it was. And so just having that compassion, that understanding of like, okay, this is something that is to an extent uncontrollable. This was not something that, this isn't Marlon trying to be in the car, listen to music, for 40 minutes. This is actually like part of his life, part of his diagnosis, and this is just something that he has to deal with, that doesn't necessarily, that isn't purposefully trying to affect the business. When you look at it like that, like, everybody's human, everybody has these things that, these inconveniences that might happen. and just a matter of especially those people with disabilities understanding that those inconveniences might happen a little bit more frequent, but it's not a matter of like I said, laziness or not wanting to do the job, but it's just a matter of um, we we just need to handle this really quickly, and then we'll be back. Working at Tommy Hilfiger, it's a clothing store. You're walking around or on your feet a lot of times,
Mhm.
and my boss realized that I going from the cash register all the way to the back of the store and having to go back and forth was not the best avenue for me as a person with a physical disability. The last 4 years, though, I kind of knew every day what my duties were going to be. I was always register, and so it was a matter of him once again getting creative and understanding that Marlon is really good with using his hands and really good with checking in and out customers, but he's not the best swiftly moving around to go help a customer. So we're gonna have Marlon always be register, nothing else. Always be register, and I was okay with that
Mhm.
because that was what I was good at, and so my boss leaned into what I was good at rather than um, keeping me in a place where I might have been struggling and saying that I just need to improve and I need to improve when in reality it wasn't a flaw of my work ethic or my work skill. It was simply my disability that was a limitation. It's like it's not about necessarily modifying sometimes. It's about seeing, like I said, those strengths and what you can do and keeping you in that spot and so that you're still contributing to the overall team. You're still contributing to the goal and the overall team in a certain position that fits you best.
Within this space, we often talk about the term intersectionality, and that is different underrepresented groups within our society. So, would you mind speaking to the experience of being both Black and also having a disability and how those two might interact in a way that people aren't aware of?
Minority groups of any kind go through similar situations, whether that's being ostracized, whether that's being counted out or being seen as lesser than. Um, and so all of these things, just the experiences that I've already gone through um, with being black, but then also like I said, having a disability and seeing those things from the black perspective, from family members and things like that, um, made me realize, okay, they're not being picked to be on the team because they're black. I'm not being picked to be on the team because or somebody with a disability not being picked on the team because you feel like they can't do it. I think it was during the Reconstruction era, after slavery was abolished, there was a narrative that like black individuals were lazy, they, couldn't do these things. And so these same sentiments or lack thereof are one and the same when it comes to being black and having a disability. Like a lot of these things relate to one another, and it's the same struggle. It's just a different label. The civil rights movement inspired the, you know, um, Crip Camp. If you've seen that movie, and the disability revolution, and Judy Heumann, and all of those pioneers in the disability rights movement.
Well, as we start to wrap up right here, if you wouldn't mind, please tell me a little bit more about your brands and where people can go to discover more about you and your businesses.
So mainly, you guys can reach me on my Instagram if you guys have Instagram. I'm also on Facebook as well. But our Instagram is TCK Brand. That's all no space. TCKBRAND. Um, and then that's also our website, so tckbrand.com. And you'll see all of our information. We just recently highlighted we're doing a series of highlighting adaptive sports, and this come around we highlighted wheelchair tennis, especially because tennis season is going on. Wimbledon is happening right now, so we try to stay current in the trends that are going on, and also highlighting other things within the disability community. Because really, what we want to do is amplify and really promote disability culture. and create what disability culture is and what all that encompasses. Like I said, with the leg braces and how that correlates to sneaker shopping and customizing sneakers and stuff. All of these things are so cool and so are worth showing and worth advertising and worth being proud of. At least is how we feel at TCK brand, the Conscious Kid brand. I just launched a nonprofit. It's called Driven by Ability. Is a mentor program geared towards middle school and high schoolers and those young adults in college, and just pretty much preparing them for what it's like to go to college, what it's like to be in the workforce. Um, and I want that experience. Um, I want people with similar experiences to mine to mentor those and to really get those people to understand what it takes to get here and also just giving them those opportunities. And outside of that, I have one more endeavor that I'll be doing that's related to my clothing brand. I'll be starting a podcast um, on fashion. I'll just say that because I haven't said anything about it yet, or I haven't dropped it yet. But it's going to be about accessibility in fashion and how popular sneakers and popular trendy accessories and clothing typically aren't accessible. And so I'll be rating them. I'll be giving alternatives to popular sneakers, what you could wear, like instead of Converse, you could wear Vans, or you can, if it doesn't work for you. So those type of alternatives.
Marlon, you are a man of many fashionable hats, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today to chat with me. Again, this has been Myles from Peak Performers. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.